I will let you know when you guys have to shut down the camera, right?
Yeah.
So, welcome again on my side. So this time I have we are here to talk a bit about history in general. So what we did with the last group is we did go a little bit through the basics of the NASA qualification process. We cannot survive this without turning it into a discussion at some point, right? We agree. Thank you. This slide is there for a lot of reasons, and for the reason that we do talk about qualification. I just took one of our folders, NASA, with me, because we would like you to see that whenever we open our mouths in order to speak about, for example, the NASA tests or anything Speedmaster related, or in fact anything Omega history related, we do it based on as many hard facts as we can get. So what you see here is one of at least 10 folders like this, that either we didn't have the papers in the museum, or our predecessors didn't know that they have them, or maybe they didn't know that they have to read them. We went to Washington and we went together as a team to Houston many times. We went to 2 state archives in Houston, both at NASA, both at the JAC, the Johnson Space Center, and both at State University in Houston, that has the other part of NASA's archives. And we've tried to copy, and we were allowed to copy every single paper that was watch related. So whenever Petros is gone and whenever the next guy, girl is writing up the history of Omega, we'll have a really good time reading this as an action book. It's like a role-playing game. Like one will be NASA and one will be Omega, and it's all there. And every time we assume something, every time we think of something, there is handwritten notes that say, look at page so-and-so, we found this may be relating to this. It's a living document that is being enriched every time we actually find something. It's actually being corrected. Like assumptions that we made are being corrected. And this is why I say this to you, because I really would like you to see that when now we open our mouths, it's based literally on hard facts. So you probably also know that it all starts with a letter that looks like this. Most of you have seen it either on the internet or an Instagram post or the old website of the Omega Museum. And it's what starts it all, because it's a certain chef de département, like a department chief called Donald K. Slayton, who was the head of the astronauts back then, that said that there is, in this letter, there is a requirement for a highly accurate chronograph, wrist chronograph, to be used as a backup instrument for the upcoming Gemini flights. If now we've covered the fact that it is a legal progress, it's the US government via its agency NASA trying to legally, officially procure watches, how do you do this? In the United States, apparently at that time, for many reasons and for many departments, also for the departments of how do you call it, like street building, like the road department or transportation department, they required already a predefined list of possible candidates. You have 3 lists, in fact, that circulate about which brands were possible candidates at that time. The saddest story of all this, and this is on us to actually tell you this, is that even the most inaccurate information that these lists represent originated at some point here, from within that building over there, simply because my good colleagues, my respectful good colleagues that back then were working there, they didn't have the means that we have today to control even their own papers. So back then, it was really somebody from Germany that called up somebody here and said, I've heard once my mother saying that Kienzle was a candidate for the NASA wrist chronograph. I mean, Kienzle. In that same list, you have Junghans. Junghans might have been a possibility because at least Junghans made wrist chronographs, and quite good ones at that. But not in the United States, not at sale like this. So I just want to say, like, even when we talk now and whenever you read something of us, it's very good to always look either at the footprint or at photographic material that sort of shows you like, where does it all come from? There is one list that is correct, that looks like this. If you read the purists, for example, before their scandals, so this was published in a very, very nice article by one of the purist guys, based on a small event we did a few years ago in Japan, which was the first time we even went public with these documents. But at the time, we chose, for various reasons, to blank out or black out Soviet Union censorship on certain details. So today might be your only chance to see the non-blank out versions of it. So this list actually was compiled by Jim Ragan's department, who was the guy that made the tests. But we have the official NASA shortlist. The problem with this is it was made literally in the last minute, because if you look at the dates, if you look at the letter of Mr. Slater, it is dated September 21st. So this list was compiled, 64. Sorry, yeah, very, very good. 1964. So this list was compiled shortly after this letter. And when this list was compiled, and then NASA sent out the request for quotations or proposal forms to these 10 manufacturers, the deadline, it was sent out like 4 days after this letter from Dick Slayton. So whoever did this list had like 3 days to prepare it. So there wasn't like, nobody gave it like the much needed thought that would maybe add other brands in the system.
Yeah, but those were the brands popular in America at the time.
You wouldn't say that Breitling wasn't popular.
It wasn't popular in the 50s in America.
Wasn't?
Not as much as the other brands. You have all the American brands.
Lucien Picard!
that's that's the exception that confirms the rule.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. But I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, they were, I don't know when they were related to AOPA, the Pilots Association. They might at least have been popular in certain.
Breitling is not there. Yeah, Breitling is weird because Carpenter wore one, and it's weird.
Yeah, and the bizarre point in all this is that the astronauts that selected the private watches for the Mercury days, this was before the letter. So the Navi timer was already flown on Scott Carpenter's wrist. So somebody at NASA would know that, yeah, there's the B brand. So, okay? Anyway, that's the list. Second story to kill. You will find like the Omega RFP paper, but in a very interesting copied and like handwritten, filled in semi-version. Problem is, if you receive this, there is no mention of testing. There's no mention of anything. Just a mention, we want to buy 3 chronographs. Give us the best price. That's all. So there is no reason to hurry, because in fact you had like 20 days between receipt of this and sending NASA the watches, with reception within 20 days or 21 days at NASA to do this. So in the world of 1964, in the world of telex, in the world of telegrams or things like that, and in the world of the highest possible speed in the air is the 707 or the DC-8. No, it's not true, it's the Convair Coronado, the Convair 990, but it didn't cross the Atlantic on full speed, so again, back to the DC-8 and 707. The problem is that you have no chance to request on, let's say, the 20th of September for Biel to deliver you tuned watches and to have them at NASA by the end of September. There is simply no way. Because tune them to what on top of it? Tune them to look good, tune them to be matte, tune them to be good running, tune them to be robust, tune them to be temperature resistant, tune them for what? We don't know. And in fact, the guy at the museum who gave this scan or copy or whatever it was of this document, and it was an Italian collector that received it for the first time, back then in the day, didn't know what he was giving out. He thought he was giving out this original document, that the original one is just literally just rolled in a typewriter and typed into. There's no single handwritten mention other than Jim Ragan's own writing to remember which paper is which. So which watch goes with which paper. What he gave to the Italian collector back in the 1990s was a copy Omega made in the late 1960s, 1969 in fact, where we had to explain to Lemania, our sister company, who we wanted to help us build the very first Alaska project watch, okay, 1969. And then the guy at Lemania said, okay, yeah, but any idea on how do, like, what did NASA do with your watches? Like, how did they test them? So we gave them the pile of things that by that time we had, with all kinds of handwritten notes on them. They went to Lemania with all kinds of notes, and that note went only to Lemania and not to NASA or not to us from New York headquarters or whatever. Just as a side note. Interestingly enough, so one of your friends, my community friends, asked very loud about was it Wittenauer or was it Longines or was it together? So we actually are very lucky to have the letters that the companies answered back in the day. So you have a letterhead Longines Wittenauer. The one line that was blacked out in a very USSR censorship way was the model number. A lot of people have speculated, and as we found out in the last group, they were wrong by 1 digit. Because everybody thinks, in fact, that it was, or it should have been, the model 234T. But in fact, it is the model 235T. It's about time that we give one community at least a bit of background. Wouldn't you like, are you not burning to know why actually the 321 was able to survive the tests and not any other movement? Where is the differences? Like, what is so different, or is there actually anything in construction between the Valjo 72 and the caliber 321? Look at how different in some details, and there is more. That movement is constructed, and that's why it's so legendary. Another easy point is the little bar, because both share, in most iterations, at least the Valjoux, the 321 always had a Breguet overcoil hairspring. The Valjoux had both flat or Breguet overcoil. If you have the version with any watch with a Breguet overcoil, unless you take some measures, if you shock it very well, because of tension, you might have the possibility that the overcoil will jump over the cock. And this little bar that is not anymore there on the 861 because it reverts to a flat spring prevents you from exactly that. Small thing, and basically what another friend, what you said before, is like, how come? Why did you guys do this? Like, why did you construct it like this when Eberhard and when Landoron, whatever, was constructing differently? And then he asked, like, would you dare say, or would you say it's over-engineering? And then we discussed a bit, and I would like to do the same thing here and just say, yes, it is over-engineering, but in the best possible way. The only difference that you really have is on some very, very early movements, like first year or first few years, you don't have the little bar on the balance, and you also in the beginning the minute counter is also only secured with a spring. Now this changed roughly.
The Core 27.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but roughly between 1949 and 51ish, like in this period, this is where that little spring was changed to the full-fledged braking lever or holding in place lever.
What would have happened if no watch would have passed got through the test?
There is only one internal document that hints at the fact that NASA was very afraid that they would have to actually engineer their own watch. Because something is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Not only the Alaska. I want to lose, in a good sense, a few words on us. The general meaning of us, the community. And first of all, because I had the honor and the pleasure to talk to you 2 times today, and I just want to let you know that the only reason I personally, as Petros, can talk to you today is due to one man who is since a long time no longer with us. Nothing to do with Omega. I mean, obviously in his heart and brain, yes, but factually not. I wouldn't be talking to you, and probably most of you wouldn't be here liking Speedmasters or loving Speedmasters if we all hadn't learned from Chuck Maddox. It's about time that somebody says this. Had Mr. Maddox been around today, I think he would be extremely happy and extremely proud to every time, for example, we find out something at the museum, because we are lucky enough to find out things, because we can travel. He would be probably very, very happy to always update and say, look what they found and things like that, and post new interviews and post new things. So don't forget the past, because we are all here because of Chuck. And I would also like to thank you for this, and I would like to also give due thanks to somebody that bugged me. I think I received from this guy more emails and more phone calls than I've received in my 10 years at Omega from all my colleagues all together. But I'm here to say this in a good sense, because Philip, if he could collect observatories, he would collect observatories and telescopes. But he's an astronomer, and in his way, he's a great guy. And what he's doing currently, one of the things he's currently best at, is at amassing and researching photographs that we never even knew they existed. Because Philip found something that we had no clue about. That the Soviet Union, Soviet cosmonauts, seemed to have been wearing, Philip gave us, and this is the community in a way, this is the good way the community should work, because we should listen to each other. So we received an input. How many emails, but it was an input. It's like, go to your RADI archives. But listen, so metallic bracelets, black dial, carton noir, and then suddenly they say, and Omega Speedmaster Model 1, Moonwatch, carton blanc. Like, white iron? Ainsi que heat shields. And how did they know? So we only know half of it, and this is the coolest part of them all. Because in fact, they could have only known if they were spies, but they were not so interested in watches at the time. So as important as we think we are, so we told them. At some point, we told them. So we had already the original distribution copy for the Alaska 2 project, or the Moonwatch white dial in the red case. Like this, we presented it to NASA, okay? Mm-hmm. But since it's hand-typed, we had created original carbon copies. So we really went there, we really proposed it to them officially as the perfect space watch, the very same way we tried to propose the Alaska project, Amy Alaska project, to NASA. So we are not done with all the research, but we really wanted to give you something a bit special today. And I don't know how you feel. I mean, like, if I heard it, if I was sitting there, I would be probably, I can probably not tell you what I would be doing, but this is important. This is actually important stuff. And yes, one more time, we wouldn't have looked on these papers, not in a million years, if it wasn't for a member of the community that has come, stepped forward and told us this. Thank you.